Hello, hello. It is May 28th, 2024. Welcome to Scouching Live. I am Will Scouch. Of course, I am finally joined by my illustrious co-hosts, Samuel McGilligan. It's been a while, buddy. How you been?
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
You got the golf hat on and everything?
Yeah.
Is that
not
a Titleist?
good idea?
Yeah.
Because I am not having a good year.
Golfing?
Yeah.
Oh, no. How many times have you been out?
I've been out 3 times.
Okay.
And it hasn't gone particularly well at any point in time. I don't know if it ever has whenever I've been on a golf course. I don't know if it ever will.
Right. Are you a reckless golf cart driver? Are you one of those?
Define.
Property damage, perhaps?
No, okay. Nothing like crazy like that.
Okay.
But like
you've never flipped one.
No.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if I'd survive if I did.
That's true. It seems like a very dangerous thing to do. Yeah. Well, anyway, welcome to Scouching Live. It's lovely to have Sam back. I'm also, of course, joined by producer AJ. How are you, Mr. Man?
Hey, I'm doing well. Our TikTok's kind of blowing up now.
It is a little bit, eh? Yeah, it's nice to see. We're on the TikToks and doing pretty good. Not so bad.
Yeah,
a lot of the Finns discovered Consta Hellenius's report.
Yeah.
So Finland's all over it. A couple of the most recent ones have also been going. So, there's going to be more coming too. You got a lot more going on the way.
Follow us there, guys. Please do.
Yes,
we want to be able to live stream on that platform.
That is a very good point. Sending this to TikTok would be very good. Anyway, before we get into the actual hockey and the meat of the show, we're going to just go through our ads. We're brought to you by Fanatics. You can use our affiliate link in the description or scan the QR code in the window to provide a small kickback to the show and anything you buy in the shop. You can also support both Sam and I, help us pay our bills by subscribing to puckpreps.com to get all of your NCAA and CHL prospect needs. You can also support us through Fractal Hockey Consulting, which is my business for hand-tracked targeted player analysis and recruitment packages for the NCAA, Europe, and beyond. We got solutions for pretty much anything. I was actually just in Montreal at the Golden Bucket Tournament, which was a ton of fun with a bunch of guys trying to get jobs in Europe. Heard some pretty crazy stories. I actually met Mr. Corsi. So
that's right.
I
thought
Mr.
you were
Corsi.
joking when you first said that,
Nope,
and then I was like,
joke.
"Oh wait, no, you're being serious."
He was on a panel for the thing I took part in. He's a cool guy, man. Jim Corsi.
I believe it.
Cool dude, man. Yeah, really cool guy.
You got a last name like that, you make up shot attempts as a stat, and you start like being cool.
AJ, you might like this. Jim Corsi was telling a story about what it was like playing in Italy like 30-40 years ago. And it was obviously before the euro, and the exchange rate for the Italian lira to US dollars was like humongous. And so he's like, I'd wake up in the morning and I'd have an envelope on my front porch full of liras, and it was like my pay for the week, and it was like the equivalent of $1,000 or like not $1,000 US, but like a few $100 US, but it was all in lira. And he's like, I had like 30 million lira in my pocket. So thought it was a little bit crazy, but now he's like, now it's a little bit different. But Italy in the 70s was something. But anyway, a lot of fun in Montreal. It was a good time. Met some cool people and had some pretty good hockey. I saw a kid break a couple of teeth, and that was unpleasant. He seemed displeased, but it happens. But anyway, you can also obviously help us out subscribing at scouching.ca, where you can get exclusive access to innovative data tools with unparalleled insights into draft prospects, especially at this time of the year, and players making their way into the NHL. We got a ton of exclusive content for subscribers as well, coming between now and the draft, especially once the NHL season wraps up. So get your subs in now, and you'll get a lot of exclusive content regarding the draft. So we can get right into it. Today we're going to be doing something a little different. It's a little more, I guess, off the cuff, you could say. But we're going to be taking a look. I mean, today the big thing in the world of hockey, at least in our world, was Corey Pronman putting out a list of 120-something odd guys that are out there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about, obviously, that, but also wrapped up in the differences between what I can tell is probably someone a little more geared towards the insider side of things, figuring out who teams are actually looking at in a given range relative to just us who really don't have a lot of that knowledge and just kind of are flying by the seat of our pants, because there are some pretty interesting differences and it'd be nice to explore them. But I mean, where do we want to start? I mean, we can just get right into it. A little bit of a spicy day from Mr. Corey Pronman today.
Oh yeah.
Again, off the top, No disrespect intended to the guy at all. You know, this is just an interesting. I find it more of an interesting insight, I think, because he is a pretty tied in guy.
Yeah, he is, to the point where like any tone I had towards Proman's rankings changed the day that he said Shane Wright.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say.
And I went, he's just playing a different game than I am right now. It's not a fair 1-to-1 comparison anymore. He's got that in. It's like you said, he's got that inside information.
And that's the thing. Like he definitely, I think, has his finger on the pulse pretty good. Like, because I think he was the first person to start. Like, I think he put out a list that had Shane Wright at 4, and everyone was like, "What are you doing? Like, you are out of your mind." And he never really, like, I don't think he really like explained it a ton. It just, he dropped it, and everyone's like, "Whoa, okay." And then it actually turned out to be true. And then I think Bob McKenzie had him at 2 or 3 or something like that.
Bob had him
2. So then, I
think Proman's list dropped after
it did.
McKenzie's ranking. It was like the most recent insider list to have dropped, which really shows that like McKenzie pulls the scouts, but he was talking to the people who in the know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's my read of this. And the same goes for like a Sam Cosentino. Like I think Sam Cosentino was the only person who had Tyler Boucher in his first round the week of the draft, and was like, don't be surprised if this guy goes pretty high. So it's like, if there are certain individuals I think who have their finger on the pulse, and Corey Proman I think is one of them. So in case you don't know, I mean, obviously since it's a paywalled thing, I'm not going to just go through all 126, but it is very interesting to me right off the top. The 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all defensemen, and for me at least, 2, 3, and 4 are guys that aren't in my top 10. In Artyom Levshinov, Carter Yakimchuk, and Anton Silayev.
Yep.
So I don't know about you. I know you have Levshinov a little lower. Probably I might even have him lower than you do nowadays, because I bumped him down quite a bit after watching him again last week.
Highest he ever hit on my list was 10 for like 3 days, and then I watched someone else and went,
right.
Yep, I'm forcing him up the list.
And he's in my teens right now.
I have him 12 or 13.
So yeah, I think I have him lower.
Really?
Yeah, I think he's at like 16 or something.
How the turntables.
I mean, in my case with him, again, like the big thing about this draft is there's just a lot of situations where it's like, if you like a player, I can't tell you you're wrong.
Yes.
But there's just a lot of guys where I am equally interested or slightly more interested, like, it's not that I don't like an Artyom Levshinov. It's just that there's like 10 guys who I think bring a little bit more oomph to their game. Like, not physically, because that's what Levshinov does, but I mean impact in the NHL kind of thing. Higher.
I agree.
Harder to find stuff.
100%.
And I feel like he'll be a fine player.
Yeah, I fully agree. Like I still haven't separated it into 2 tiers, because I don't believe it's 1 tier, but I have never had a tier in my entire life start at 5 and make its way to 23 before. But when I look at every player I have in that tier from 5 to 23, I'm like a coin flip almost every single one of them.
Right.
There's a clear top half and a bottom half, which is likely where I will cut the tiers off.
Yeah.
But when I cut the tier, I was like, you all are kind of the same talent level, and yeesh, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's tricky, right? Like, because I mean, I believe that this is the kind of thing that's going to happen, right? Like, you look at a guy like Levshinov and you put on your NHL hat and you can see it. Like,
100%.
Big physical guy. He puts up points. I still don't quite understand how, after seeing him like 12 times this year. I don't quite see it.
Yeah.
Like, especially too, because in my view, as the season has progressed, he's become less reckless. Like, at the beginning of the year, he was a forward, basically.
I couldn't stand it.
He was below the goal line just as often as he was below his own goal line. Like, it was crazy. But now it seems a little bit more stable.
Yeah.
and I don't know, is that a good thing? Like
I think it is.
It is.
Personally,
Yeah, I think so.
I just think what you see now is what he will be in the NHL. That reckless fourth forward version wasn't going to be a thing because, like, the circumstances required to for a coach to be comfortable letting him do that.
Yeah.
How many defensemen in the NHL play like a fourth forward consistently and score points, and their coach is just fine with the defensive sacrifices and positional like deficits? This was always what his game needed to become. So my confidence in him as a player grew as a result of seeing this change.
I agree.
I've seen the most of his points come from long distance shots, which are fine, but they happen in the NHL and they get bunked in. Yep. So those will translate. He does have good passing vision from the blue line. If there's an open lane, he doesn't necessarily create the open lane, but if it's there, he will capitalize on it. Mm-hmm. He will see it. He will thread the pass. He'll get the perfect amount of pace on the pass. It gets caught easy. Or attacker can shoot it. The thing is just like second overall.
Yeah, like that's the thing. And I think there's a lot of guys who it's like if you take a Yelevchinov, I'm sure you're going to get a guy. You'll get a player.
Yeah.
But I think you'll look back at this draft and go, man, like this guy, and this guy, we really would like to have a guy like that on the team, right? Like, I'm not saying Levchinov is not going to be an impactful guy. Like, he'll be a physical player. He'll be, getting involved in the corners. If you're a fan, like, you'll watch him play and you'll probably be like, yep, he's playing defense, right? Like, he's playing a big, mean style of defending. But I think when you look at the details, you kind of go, okay, like there's a little bit more work to be done.
Yeah.
And on that note, Carter Yakimchuk at 3. I
straight up, he's a second round pick.
Yeah, he's been in my second round pretty much all year. Like I
just don't get it. What is it? What if Carter Yakimchuk is named Carter Forsling and plays in Sweden? Are we even having this conversation? This is the one where I'm like, okay, this has to be the typical every year that one Canadian kid gets the bump. He's got to be it, right? Like, I don't see it. Every game I've watched, I've never once seen, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but like I just haven't seen an overall defensive competency that makes me believe that that's a high-end NHL defensive player. I can at least see the meanness and stuff that an NHL team can be attracted to. I can see an NHL, somebody on a development staff sitting there like rubbing his hands together like, oh, I can make this guy a beast defender. I'm not going to put it out of the question that can happen, but as of now, it doesn't really work.
Yeah,
I would be more willing to bet on it if the skill level was executed a lot more when the guy is at full, like in motion completely and not just like entering a stride or like entering a glide. Sorry.
Yeah.
These are the things where it's like, what is he going to be?
Yeah. And I honestly, like, it's going to be interesting this season, looking back 5-10 years from now because I feel like a lot of these guys it all comes down to like where they go from here, right? Like, it's not so much like what they are now. Because right now, I think like objectively, there's a bunch of guys where it's like, well, they're not there yet, but like,
oh yeah,
in time I could
draft
see
it, right? It's like 2021 all over again.
But I think back because like I've said it multiple times on the show, like I think back to like when I kind of had a bit of a not come to Jesus moment, but like a check myself moment when I had guys like Caden Gooley and Braden Schneider ranked a little lower than everybody else, and now I have a really good appreciation for Caden Gooley, and like I've seen Braden Schneider in the playoffs this year, and like he's a fine NHL player.
Yep.
And I keep thinking back to like what I thought about those guys when I watched them play in the WHL, and I'm being perfectly honest. Where those two guys, I remember watching them and being really impressed with them in a lot of ways, especially defensively, that I don't feel with Yakimchuk. Like when I watch him, it's like, so I get that there's an argument of like, well, there's development and, his skating's not the best. So let's work on that and we'll get somewhere. And he's already got the willingness to play physical and all of that stuff, which fine. But it's like, again, it's like, where's that line? Like, where do you draw the line of like taking that type of a player that high in the draft? Right. To me, again, like we'll get into it, but there's a lot of guys where again, I feel like with a guy like that, you're putting a lot of work on your shoulders to get him to a point where it's worth a top 3 pick. Whereas there's a lot of other guys where they could, you could easily see them as they are now, just, you know, in a few years being ready for the NHL. I don't know.
The line for me is very clearly defined as if I'm drafting to develop, and almost entirely every player ranked ahead of them needs to already kind of be better than what this player is now, and B, also have like, you know, developmental room. Like almost every player in the first round has equal room for development as Yakimchuk. Yeah. This is not an overly, it's like you said, it's not a very developed class. It's a whole lot of like, you're gonna be this one day, I think, but I don't know for sure because you're missing A, B, and C. Yeah. So it's like, why is Yakimchuk the one that everyone has picked? I can't figure it out. I had gone through an optimistic phase. I had moved him up into the first round. Actually, 2 different phases where I moved him out of the second into the first. But then I circle back on all the guys I jumped him ahead of, and I'm like, but there's more. Like, I think I'd just rather work with this. Maybe this is just like the acceptance of the fact that like Yakimchuk is not the type of player that I'm looking for, and that's fine. Others are looking for that.
And I think Yakimchuk is a good example of like my own philosophy watching players at work, because I have him a lot lower than 3. But I think Corey Pronman accurately highlights his puck skill, his compete, I would say also, and his shot as highlights. But to me, those things, like the skill for me, really only comes out in the offensive zone when he kind of is comfortable doing so.
Yeah.
And I, again, like when I look at defensemen, it's like I am very skeptical of defensemen where their best traits are the end of possessions. So you are either the one taking the shot that puts it on net, or you are the one who is using skill in the offensive zone to like make space and then do something from there. Because like, what about getting to that point? Like the whole point is like, for me, there's like a pyramid of importance almost when I'm looking at a player, where it's like the basic baseline is like, I need a guy who, when they do not have the puck, which is going to be significantly more often than when they do have it, a guy who I can trust to be good at getting it back, right? And then when they have it, what do they do from there? And then you can go from there. And then when they're in the offensive zone is when you can go, okay, well, let's look at the fun bits. And if that's there, then it's a bonus. Because to me, like, look at the NHL playoffs, right? Are the super, super skilled guys the ones out there dangling the goalies and scoring every goal? No, it's like, you've got to compete, you've got to battle, you got to play off the puck. Like Alexis Lafreniere having a phenomenal playoff. I think he's a point a game. And the big thing I've noticed with him is someone, I don't know if it was Peter Laviolette or Gerard Gallant or whoever, got in his ear and somehow managed to turn him into a much more physical, resilient player than he was. And his ability, like the thing that was always special about him is his skill sort of on the fly was always really good. Just he can catch the puck and put it through a couple of pairs of legs real quick, get him a chance for himself to score.
He always felt like a fantastic improvisation player.
Yeah, and he's getting and now he's got this like physical side to him where like he's forechecking a lot better and like all of these things. So that gives me a lot more confidence in a player like that in the playoffs. Okay, so almost a point a game. And then I think it's Barclay Goodrow has like twice his goal production from the regular season in the playoffs this year alone.
What?
Like, but it's because in the playoffs, like the skill kind of almost doesn't matter almost. Like it's obviously good to have, you know, would you like to have a Connor McDavid on your team? Sure. But like there's other factors that come out that just make the playoffs a little bit different. And it's not just because they don't call the rules. Like goalies lock things down in the playoffs, right?
Yes.
Like it's hard to beat them. So you have to do it with like tips, rebounds, really crummy garbage, right? So to me, when I look at a guy and it's like, oh, but his shot is so good and all of this stuff, like on the power play and stuff, I'm going, well, sure. But thinking long-term, right? Thinking about the biggest stages is where I kind of come from.
100%. What do you mean that Mitch Marner isn't good in the playoffs?
Oh God. Yeah. You haven't been here for all that talk. Holy smokes. Oh boy. I mean, I don't want to spend forever on this, but I am curious about your thoughts on Anton Silayev at 4. That is, you want to talk about like home run swing. And the weird thing is he calls his skating average.
That's
his thing that he highlights the most is his compete. The player comparison he gives is Zdeno Chara, which I think is very strange. But
I don't. Silayev is an interesting one. Silayev is a player that I'm not really sure I'm ever going to draft, but every time I look at him on the list, I'm like, you're the one I have ranked too low, but I never know where to put him. So I haven't really, and I've gone back and watched him like 3 times since this predicament started. I have no clarity. You can see the vision for this guy being like a top 4 shutdown guy. Like, I mean, like you're talking about in the playoffs, I can see a situation where the 6'7", what is he, 6'6", 6'7"?
6'7", yeah.
Yeah, 6'7" guy who moves like him, but in 5 years, burlier, stronger, and eventually coached to not let pucks go through his legs every which way
right.
he gets rushed, would just be a menace in his own zone. Like if a guy like Ben Sherratt can do, the good for Montreal on a cup run years ago, you can picture like a perfected Silayev. But I think if the team that drafts him is not all on the same page,
right,
you are setting a pick on fire because he's not Dmitry Simashev. He's not already the guy.
Yeah.
Then you just need to be like, don't change anything. Just get better and more refined. You will be incredible. I guess not even better. He already was very, very good at what he did. He just needed to be more refined. Silayev needs to get better. That's the part where I'm like, okay, do I trust most NHL teams to take that player at 4 and have it work out? Probably not. Would I be surprised if it does? No. Is he Victor Hedman? Absolutely not.
No, he's not.
Not even close.
I mean, I think it all comes down, and this is why I think like being part of a team would be very interesting with him, because I feel like you could say he could go any of a number of different ways.
Oh yeah.
Like if you want him to be like, I don't think he's ever going to be like a goal scoring defenseman. Like he's not a threatening shooter or anything. But I could see if you thought that you could turn him into a Tyler Myers, and say what you will about Tyler Myers, right? Like
he's an effective hockey player.
He's flawed. Say what you will about him, but he has his warts. But you can see why teams like Tyler Myers.
Yeah,
big, really good skater, can move the puck pretty well. Once in a while, give you some offense, and that's great. You don't look at him and go, "Oh my God, he's the meanest defenseman in the entire league," even though he's 6'8" or whatever it is. Yeah. But you look at him and go, "Okay, I see why teams value him." And like with Silayev, I could see the same vibe where it's like you're probably gonna not love him every single shift he's on the ice, but you could see his mobility and the bit of skill he's got, and you give him a bit of encouragement to control play himself a little more, and I could see something there. Or you could go, all right, you're 6'7", 211 pounds. You clearly want to play a physical game, but it just doesn't work right now in the KHL. Let's bump you up to 230, 240 and turn you into just a monster, like just a guy who you don't need to worry about offense, but your job is to be Dmitry Simashev, basically.
Yep.
And like I'm not against that idea.
The NHL will have him out beef everyone he plays against. Right. Most likely that's the path he's going down.
But to me, again, it's like fourth. It's such a what if. Like there are so many guys, it seems like, that are what if players. What if things work right, in 5 years, that like it's kind of scary to me, where I'm like, I don't know. It's wild. I mean, the other one is Beckett Seneca at 7, Ivan Demidov at 8, Zane Parekh at 9, Caden Lindstrom 10. I mean, we could talk about Beckett Seneca a little bit because he's not going to be part of the discussion we have in a little bit about differences between different lists. But I don't know. Every time it gets brought up on the show, I say the same things. But I always, and I swear to God I do this, I leave the show, and between one show and the next one, I go and look at Beckett Seneca again. Because I don't want to be foolish, right? If I'm going to be out there and go, okay, top 10 for Beckett Seneca is a little bit much for me, I need to be like positive that that's what I actually believe. And so I've seen like 3 games of Seneca. I've tracked 2, and then I watched some isolated footage from the playoffs. He was definitely too low for me, I think, as of a week ago. I bumped him up a little bit, but
Where'd you have him?
I think he was around like 21 on my list, 22, and I think he's at like
20 right now.
Yeah,
I
like
say
I think
this
he's
as someone who likes him.
And I think I have him at like 19 now. I think Seneca, where is he?
I find the top 10 discussion
21.
that has come out around Beckett started as soon as like somebody was like, yo, Montreal might take him at 5, and everyone was like, that's ridiculous. And now it's like everyone's like, oh wait, he might actually be like a top 10, at least top 12 caliber guy. And I'm always like hesitant when I see every single list suddenly shift to move a player up all at the same time. It's like, all right, guys, like I watched his regular season, I watched his playoffs. He was better. He wasn't like sensationally better. Like I think like, and it's he was at a very clear range for the entire year and just moved up all of a sudden. And I think that's usually the sign around this time of the hype trains that are starting to get launched. And it's like, I do see the universe where he ends as like the 10th, 11th, 12th best player in the draft without question. It's just, there's a lot of work that has to be done.
Well, I think with Seneca, what I think he's gotten a lot better at is his ability to jump into the rush off the puck is way better than it was.
Yes.
Like the way he gets up the ice now, especially if he doesn't have the puck, is really impressive. His skill level, like on pass receptions and how confident he is trying to get around players, like I like it. He's a good, there's a lot of fun to be had there. But I can't really explain it. I know this is, it's my job to explain it, but whenever I watch him, I sit for a whole game and I'm going, okay, there were some nice plays in that game. Like he made some nice plays for sure, but like there wasn't a whole lot of real projectable impact. Like I don't know how to explain it.
I think I can. I get where you're coming from because I'm feeling the same thing. I've only seen 1 game of his since like he, skyrocketed up the boards. But my impression I walked away with was that I want to see, he has great skill. He has great handling and tight for a larger guy.
Yep.
He has great reach and he can kind of get around guys on his feet pretty well. But why isn't it more? I don't even mean like, it's okay if he was attempting this stuff and making mistakes. This is why Caden Lindstrom has been 4th overall for me like almost all year. Lindstrom makes like quite a few mistakes all the time, but he's consistently using every tool in his game all the time.
Yeah.
Seneca, I can't really say that he's using them, but it's always for the smaller plays. Like it's cool that you got around that guy. He jumped in the rush. As you said, his off puck play has gotten much better when recognizing what lane to fill off the rush, etc.
Yeah.
He gets the puck. He uses his reach and skill and kind of like maneuvers around a guy. It looks kind of cool. And then he backhand passes it to another forward as they gain the zone. And that was like the second best highlight of the game. And there was like 4, 5, 6, 7 shifts where he gets the puck. He has some space. It's like, this is the opportunity. And then just something happens. It's not bad, but it's like, that's not the guy who's taking over the game. We're talking top 5, top 10 picks. I'm looking for the guys who are like, every time they touch the puck, they're looking to take over the game. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and this is not something that I typically think is going to get easier. It's something that I can see developed into his game over the next 2 years, and then he carries it with him to the AHL, the NHL, wherever he goes. But it's not, I'd rather just take the guy who I know already has it.
Right.
Like I see someone out there like Tijiginla, and he's out there every shift and he has it. He plays his game every way, and it's gotten better all year long. It's like if I'm Montreal and I'm looking at a Ginla and Seneca at 5, I'm like, there's only one guy I'm legitimately considering. Yeah, I don't want to take that risk. I don't want to get burnt. It's not even like this, like the net. What's the new comparison that I've kind of mentioned a couple times, or I've seen mentioned a couple times, is Slavkovsky. It's like, all right, like I get it. Slavkovsky's expanded his game, but Slavkovsky was always doing stuff in his draft year anyways.
Yeah.
He was just, my whole thing was like, I don't ever see him be getting like high level vision or like dangling
like
the
being
pants
the
off
guy.
dudes.
He's a guy, but he's not the guy.
Yeah, but like Slavkovsky had the puck a lot. He was a puck protection monster in his draft year. He was still like a big player. You just needed to teach him to do a couple things differently and hoped it all worked when projecting him to an even harder level of play. And it did. But that doesn't mean it happens with everyone. And it's the less involved a player is in using all the tools at their disposal in their draft year, the less confident I'm going to suddenly become that they're going to develop this in the future.
Yeah. And the thing too is like, again, it's the top 10. Like, I get it. Like, people have been making the argument, like, he grew a ton in the last 12 months. Like, that's obviously a lot for a 17-year-old to like go through and get over and everything and grow into. And I believe that, yeah, sure. Like, based on how much he's improved over the course of the year, like, yeah, there's an argument but that doesn't guarantee anything. Like, there's no guarantee. And I just, again, like, maybe it's just this draft class, but seeing him ahead of like Ivan Demidov and even like a Zane Parekh, like, I watched Zane Parekh today, man. Like, I've said a lot about him over the year, but he has gotten better over the year. I still don't think I'd take him top 10. I don't think he's going to go top 10.
I don't think
in terms of relative to like Beckett Seneca, like, there is something to be said there that I think I would lean more in Parek's direction or Caden Lindstrom, right? But again, like with Seneca, I do think there's a really interesting player there. Just, I don't know, like, if I'm drafting top 10 and I have a chance at like a Berkeley Catton who makes pretty much everybody look better, I don't know how I look the other way. I don't know how I do that and go, okay, but like, we'll set that aside and say, this guy still has time to like grow into his frame and everything. You know, it's like, well, sure, but unless you're like absolutely positive, right? Like, if someone who has been scouting for 50 years and is like, I've seen many, many players like this come through, trust me, this is going to be worth it. And he's like really passionate about it, then okay, whatever.
Yep.
I won't scream about it because I don't think he's not good, right? Like, it's not that he's a bad hockey player at all.
I think there's a lot. Like, if you asked me before all this stuff, I spoke nothing but praises of him for like 3-4 straight months now. I feel it's just like,
it's just now it's like, whoa.
Yeah. Now it's
like,
just like,
whoa,
what?
Okay.
Whoa. Okay. It's kind of like exactly where I'm at.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So, and the other thing too, I wanted to bring up is like, compare him, let's say, to a Cole Eiserman, where Cole Eiserman is a player who has his flaws, sure. But in terms of like skill level, I think the highlight moments out of Seneca are maybe more fun. But in terms of what Eiserman brings, like the intensity of his game and the like physicality element that he brings, I don't think is something Seneca brings. With Eiserman, the shot quality on its own is bonkers. And like Seneca's got a pretty good shot, but it's not the same as Eiserman. Like, it's just not. And so to me, and Eiserman is 9 slots lower. So it's like,
yeah, I don't know if I could ever see myself taking Seneca over Eiserman.
I think they're relatively close. They do different things, but that's a tough call for me.
They are close in terms of the ranking, but that's what I mean. Almost of like, there's the split tier in that 5 to 23 thing where it's like Beckett's second half, Eiserman's the front half, because Eiserman's passing has gotten so good throughout the year. We can talk more about him when he comes back up, but like, man, Cole Eiserman has just really managed to save his downward spiral reputation. Almost, it felt like, it's like he kind of suddenly went from like 5'6" to like 20-25 on a lot of boards.
The one I'm really curious about, he has Jet Luchenko at 19, and I love that.
I like Jet Luchenko.
I like him a lot. The more I see him, the more I'm like, yeah, I think there's something there. Like, he's not the biggest guy, but
he's just one of those, it's your phrase. He's the meat and potatoes, north-south, just he's good at what he does.
Well, he's also like, if you don't get Berkeley Catton, like, he's the next best thing to me. Like, he's so, like, I think that he is incredibly smart, and in the same way with Catton, where it's like, you think you have him down with your forecheck, he'll find a way out of it. Like, he does so many things where you kind of go, okay, you get it. Like, you see the game well. You understand what's going on around you. He's selfless, which I love. Like, he uses his line mates. He knows when to take on stuff on his own. He knows when not to, it seems. And when he's generating offense, he doesn't screw around. Like he's not flying around the perimeter of the offensive zone, sending volume passes to the middle where there's nobody there. Off the puck, he's not floating around the perimeter. No. He's going to the net. He's like getting his chances. He's sticking around the net. He's doing stuff that you want to see guys do in the NHL. And to me, I think that, his under 18, I thought he was pretty good, but not like spectacular. Yep. But it doesn't matter. Like I've seen him with Guelph
almost the entire team.
Yeah. And he looked, I think with Guelph, like he's looked really, really good. I have him a little lower than 19, but man, if I had the 19th overall pick and Corey Pronman's top 18 were all gone, I wouldn't be that upset if he were, there's guys lower on his list where I probably would want them more, like a Teddy Stiga or an Alfons Freij or whoever. But Lachenko could be part of that discussion because of just like how smart he is. He's not super big, but if you develop the skating and get him a little quicker, there could be something there. That's one that jumped out to me as interesting.
If Jet gets Jets,
that's
gonna be good.
Get Jet some Jets. And it's not that he's bad at it. It's just, that's kind of what he will probably need to lean into a little. The other thing that crossed my mind while you were talking about something completely unrelated, because this is what happens in my brain. We were talking a lot about Carter Yakimchuk. I feel very similarly about Carter Yakimchuk as I do to Leo Celine Valenius. I feel like those two guys are somewhat similar guys. Good straight line skaters.
Yes.
Defensively a bit problematic, but they are doing some of the right things, like wanting to play physical, getting involved, and it just doesn't always work out their way. And very shot driven offensively. And so to me, it's like you could let another team draft a Carter Yakimchuk in the top 5. And if you really want a guy like that, you could probably get Celine Valenius at 25, right? And you could go with someone else at 5. I don't know off the top of my head which teams have a pick super high and then not super high, but anyway.
Yeah, no, I pretty much agree with that. Little differences in their game. I think Yakimchuk has just a bit more of that skill. The issue with him is that he just I need to see him
he does have more skill. He's more skilled for sure.
Busted out in stride and in motion more. Was Celine Valenius is a little bit better in motion, but just doesn't have a whole lot of tools to do stuff when he's got no space to work with.
Yeah.
Either way, enjoy taking those guys with first round picks.
Yeah, those guys would not be first round picks for me, but I'm just, if that's the discussion we're having.
I am not surprised whatsoever if the two of them are looked back at as top 32 in a redraft 10 years down the line. I wouldn't even be surprised if they're in the top 20-ish, but I just don't, they're not going to play this style of and brand of hockey I'm particular with. I find you can make more exceptions when you're building out a forward group. Sure, these are how I want my forwards to play, but look at what this guy does. You can't tell me it's not valuable. I can absolutely find that in my line. But defensemen, you get 6 of them, and 4 of them are going to be out there for the most part. And if I'm using a first round pick on a defenseman, I ain't drafting them for the third pairing. They don't play the type of hockey that I'm typically looking for. I'm not really interested in them.
Yeah. And the last one I wanted to mention before we move on to the next little discussion we wanted to do was Aaron Kivi-Hario, who, if I'm not mistaken, was at 32, I think, for Pronman a month ago. And now he's at 61.
After he played again.
Yes. Now that he's played at the under 18s. Now, I will say, I did track 2 games of Kivi-Hario with the U18s. I think 61 is a little cool. It's a little much of an overcorrection, I think, a little bit. I don't know if I would put him in the 3rd round because the kid is brilliant. The in the game that I was watching, he didn't miss a pass. Both games, he was finding ways to keep possession with the puck on his stick. There was a lot going his way because of the way he sees the ice and the way he times his passes to line mates and all of these things. It's just that the rest of the picture for me is big question mark, right? Huge question mark. But he just but I think there's you can see why he was seen, or I guess still kind of is seen as such an interesting player.
He is still an interesting player. There's not a lot of like second round guys who offer what he does.
Yeah. I just don't know if he'll be an NHL defenseman, right? Like, I think back to other offensive Finnish defensemen we've seen in the past, Ville Polka, Anthony Honka, who are the other ones I'm forgetting about, who have all kind of done really well offensively, but then they come to North America and it's just not their jam, right? But then they go back to Finland to become pretty useful players. And I wonder if Kivi-Hario might be up that alley where it's like on big ice, when he has a little bit more time against a forecheck, he's a great passer. Like, you go, wow, that was a nice play you put together there, little guy. But then under pressure is when things
I can't ever picture
tough.
him playing in NHL playoffs and thriving.
Yeah, like the only, like, is he an Adam Fox, right? Like, because Adam Fox isn't the best skater, but I don't think, yeah, like I don't think he's on the same level as an Adam Fox personally.
Adam Fox.
But I don't know. I just thought I thought dropping him around was interesting after the U18s, because I agree, at the U18s he wasn't like mind-boggling, but I was quite pleasantly surprised at like what he was doing well,
yeah,
and what was going right for him. It's just, I don't think it was enough for me to like. He's in the middle of my second round, but I don't think it was enough for me to go, yeah, you know what, this guy actually is one of the better defensemen available. I don't think he was up that alley.
I was happy to see that he was able to show the talent that had him so high in people's minds going into the year. That was cool. Seeing those games, seeing him put together crazy passing sequences, some of the moves he pulled off.
Yeah.
That is the player that I was not seeing in the first half of the year.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay,
First
so let's
stretch of the year. Yes.
Yeah.
First half is a bit.
Let's switch gears a little bit. So just as a quick background, I posted this on Twitter this morning, but what I've done in my own work is, obviously I track average rankings. I have 25 of them. One of them is yours, of course, because you're not, you're a smart boy. But
sure.
What I started to realize, what I started thinking about was like that, I think it is pretty, not obvious, but likely that certain people who put lists out, who are, like Corey Pronman, I think, is one. There's a lot of not input, but influence from what's happening behind the scenes, right? Like, that's my hunch. So I'm always, and Bob McKenzie's stuff always turns out to be much more accurate than someone like you or I's work at the end of the day, right?
Bob just needs to get on our level.
Yeah, all 10 of his scouts need to get on our level. So what I did was I reweighed everybody's rankings and reordered them based on, weighing those specific lists a lot heavier than ours. And I think it came out very interesting what happened there. And so what I wanted to talk about was players who the public, so basically everyone but Sportsnet, TSN, and The Athletic, pretty much, and a couple of private outlets or public ones that I know do have some connections and do the same kind of thing. The guys that those groups really like relative to guys like us, and the opposite. Okay. So I don't know if you want to start with guys that we are higher on or lower on. I'll let you tell me.
Lower.
So guys that we're lower on. So the biggest difference in raw number is Dean Letourneau.
What a surprise.
So Dean Letourneau is the player that people like us have ranked the lowest relative to what's potentially behind the curtain.
He's going like 17th overall too, which is like crazy.
I don't get it.
Well,
I don't get it.
What's you got their height and weight beside their names on that little thing?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess with Letourneau, like I saw it in Pronman's ranking. I think the comparison he gave was Mike Rasmussen. And to me, I see that as probably the case with Letourneau. Like a guy who you really tailor his game around, just go to the net and raise hell, right? Like, yes, that's your job.
I guess almost like the NHL knows that's a defined role and they can see him become that guy, so they value it.
Yep.
Whereas like a lot of the public is looking more so towards not filling a specific role on the team, but just rating these players and how they like their own philosophy. We value upside, skill, mobility, ability to solve problems on the fly, et cetera, transition play. And Latorno doesn't really scratch a whole lot of those boxes. I mean, it was extremely flawed, but I saw enough in those USHL games to go, if he played a full season here, probably be a pretty effective player at the end of it. But
yeah,
I still don't know.
I see a bit of and again, we're not the Yuri Slafkovsky show, but I do see echoes of a minimal version of him there. Look at Yuri Slafkovsky in the NHL right now, right? He's playing with really good players. He is a guy who, you give him the puck, he can make a play real fast. He's on an outlet, he gets the puck, passes it, and gets in the rush, right? He goes to the net, he can bang and crash around the net, all that stuff. And if he's in open ice, he can shoot pretty good.
Yep.
And I feel like Latorno being that brand of a player in the NHL is probably what he'll be. Just that's what his job will be, right? We'll pass you the puck. Your job is not to carry it, but to find a target of your own, get it to them, join the rush, and be like an F3, and go to the net, use your big bod, crash and bang. And to me, I get it. I get it. And at 30th overall, if you get a guy who is a complimentary dude that just goes to the net and can bang and crash, then great. I think that's a thing, but again, I think there's just always going to be guys that I think bring more to the table that you probably want on your team, and a guy like Latorno, it's just, I guess it just comes down to style of play, and I just haven't really. That's not my jam, I guess.
I do admit that I'm almost by accident biased against these types of guys. So finding out that he is the player that the rest of the public are lower on is probably the least surprising thing you could have.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all.
Wow.
The next one was Leo Salim Belanius. I mean, I don't know how much we can say about him. I think
we kind of nailed it earlier.
Yeah, to me, he's a good second-ish round guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know about first round. Again, it's I just think there's a lot of excitement. I like exciting hockey, and to me, he doesn't really bring a whole lot of exciting hockey to the table.
Don't want to draft a guy who will play on my third pairing, and I go, yeah, right.
Yeah.
In the first round. It's just not something I want. And then if the client is well, he can be better, and it's okay, how? And then you have to give a list. And if I applied that list to everyone I have in my first round, they'd all still be better. It's what are we doing? I don't know.
Yeah. The next one, Tarek Parasak. Now,
I would have honestly swore this was reversed.
What do you mean? That
Parasak would be higher on the public's radar because of pure points?
Nope.
But that does, I guess it makes sense because I haven't seen him busting up people's lists. But I don't know. I guess I'm a little surprised that the NHL insiders seem to have this much belief in the projectability of a guy like him. He's such a rare case, right? He's such a case study.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the same vibe as what I remember of, it's to me, it's a Joshua Waugh type situation a few years ago where it's there's not much happening in his game very often, but then he gets the puck once in a while and you go, oh, that's how he has 100 points this year, right? It's oh, he just finds a way to get the puck on net and put it in.
Shade, not saying that they're comparable stylistically, but shades of 2019 Kaliev.
I guess
I remember seeing Kaliev in person and looking for him and being where is this kid? And then I saw he finished the game with 3 points, and I'm I don't think he was even one of the 5 most notable players on the ice, but he's the only one to score multiple points. He had 3 of them. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've watched Parasak a bunch because, again, a guy who scores like that, if I'm not gonna, I don't even think I have him ranked. If I'm gonna have that situation, then I got to be sure. I just don't see how it works in the NHL. Like, I don't see, like, especially, like, what's his job in the NHL, right? Don't
score.
Yeah, go find space in the offensive zone, right? Like, I don't know. The last game I watched of him was the best one I've seen of him, but I still, like, the last 2 periods, I kind of went, again, it's kind of like how I do this every year towards the end of the draft season, where it's like, if I'm not watching a guy and I'm not excited, or I'm not like, this is what I can see you doing in the NHL well, I'm like, well, there's not really, like, maybe I'm wrong.
Like, what's the incentive?
Yeah,
right?
at some point you just have to go, maybe I'm wrong. I just think this isn't my guy. I don't know. And if I'm wrong, then I'm interested in to know why and what's different.
If we're wrong, it's because somebody took those feet and made them more feety.
Right.
Like the skating has to take a big step forward. Like, it's so difficult to see him playing NHL pace when it looks like he struggles with his own. I'm not saying he does struggle with his own pace, because, he has a lot of points, but like, the gap between WHL pace and NHL pace is significant, and the room for improvement in his skating that looks like reasonable without massive foundational changes is minuscule. It almost looks like I just don't really see how it works. But at the same time, like, biomechanics are weird. I will make that my anthem and put it on my tombstone. Like, it is correct. Who knows, man? Like,
I don't know either. I don't know.
I just put it this way: if someone was like sitting there with a comprehensive plan, like, this is what you do, and he's sitting there reading it in front of you at an interview, and he's like, I'm on board with this, the optimism does, like, grow a bit. If there's a 60-year-old dude who's been in there doing it for 40 years going, like, I've seen these guys come up, like you mentioned earlier with Beckett.
I just don't know. But again, it's like, what are you saying no to if you take him like 20, right? I feel like at 20, there's got to be guys where I'm like, like a Teddy Stiga, who we'll get to in a minute, but I don't know. Another one I wanted to mention, Charlie Elick. We could actually probably just do a few at once because they're all pretty much the same. Charlie Elick, Cole Baudouin, EJ Emery, Matvey Gridin, Matvey Shervin. I was interested to see Lucas Pettersson on this list as a guy that the private guys seem to like more. Yeah. Lucas Pettersson's I have Pettersson pretty low. I think he's at like 40 for me or something.
He's 40 for me too.
Yeah.
Get out of my head.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't help it. And then a couple others we've already talked about, like Seneca and Yakimchuk and Perek and Silayev and all that stuff. But Elick and Emery, I think you can do all at the same time. I mean, that just makes sense to me. Those guys are like maybe ranked in the late first, and I think NHL teams look at them and go, yeah, they could be bottom pair, physical jerks.
Yeah,
sure.
And as we know that the NHL, especially those teams in the playoffs, where they just want to get a body who they know they can play in 4 years to replace whatever defenseman is coming off the books or whatever.
Yep.
And they have mean playoff hockey style vibes, especially when you're in the playoffs and you just watched your team. If you lost early, you just watched your team kind of probably get a little overwhelmed physically, or if you made it further in, you most likely won with some level of overwhelming physicality somewhere in your lineup. It's like, guys, like especially Charlie Elick. Elick is crushing some people sometimes.
He is. The thing about guys like Elick and Emery, where I guess I could see myself thinking about going for him relatively early, is like, do you think they can be NHL minutes eaters where in the playoffs their job is to punish, get the puck back, get the puck to the center ice line, and fire it into the offensive zone? Because that is a job in the NHL for defensemen. Get the puck back, be physical, be a pain in the ass. I was going to say something worse. Be a pain in the ass, get the puck back, find a way to get it to the center ice line and just rifle it into the offensive zone and forecheck. Yeah. Right? Like, is that, and I could see that for those guys, especially Elick. I think Emery could be that. It just takes more time with him, I think. I think he's a little further away. But regardless,
I could see Emery becoming that, but I agree with you. Elick is going to
That's
be
what
that.
he already kind of is.
And that's why, like, if Alec made it to the second round, my jaw would be on the floor. I'm
It
not
won't. Yeah,
looking
he
to
won't.
take him with a first, but
Yeah.
like the NHL will. And it's just one of those picks where it's like, yeah, okay, like, do
Yeah.
your thing, guys. I get it, kind of, a little bit.
Yeah. You know, whatever. Cool. Colbo Dwan makes sense too. Physical, gets up
Yeah.
and down the ice.
I like
He'll drop the
Baudouin.
gloves. I like him, you know, sure.
Early second round kind of
Yeah,
guy.
early
for
second,
me.
even a late first, maybe, sure. For sure. I could see that. Outside of that, I mean, there isn't a whole lot I think that we really could go over. Matvey Shuravin. Yeah, meh. Jed Lachenko, I'm interestingly, is one. I mean, I have him pretty high, but it seems like these others have him higher on average, which is interesting, but we kind of went over him earlier.
Yeah.
I wonder if that changes as the draft approaches, the more people see of him, because a lot of these lists are from before the U18s. But I guess that's a good enough time to switch over to the other side before we go to chat questions.
Yeah.
So by far, the player that we are, by we, I mean us normies.
I already know who it is.
Yeah. Well, you tell me.
It's Luke Misa.
It is Luke Misa.
I know I saw this list. I was looking at this list specifically earlier.
The difference
but I was
between-
trying to remember who was first.
Just for the record, the difference between Dean Latorno's weighted average and the other average, the total average, is about 10. So Latorno, on average, when you reweigh the rankings, jumps up 10 slots.
Yep.
Luke Misa is about 14 in the opposite direction. So it's not even close. Like that is just how much different it is for us to think of him and them.
I don't understand it personally. You think that a guy who moves like he does, and I mean he moves, if the whole thing is like you got to be a lightning skater when you were quote unquote undersized, well, he checks that box in spades. He doesn't really, like, he's not shy from physical play. There's a foundation to build off of when he's stronger. He was never going to be like a bulldog out there, but you can see resilience in his game. He is explosive, flies out of a lull.
Yeah.
One of the best volume passers in the draft. And he's an OHL boy. And they don't seem to care about him at all. And it's just kind of baffling. I thought for sure he was going to be at the start of the year like a top 20 guy in the whole draft. And now it's like he's a mid-round pick, almost guaranteed to go to Carolina, because that's the type of pick that they like, or his team like them, right? Like, man, that's wild.
So with Luke Misa, I mean, look, he wasn't on Pronman's list at all. So in Pronman's world, that guy is a 4th or 5th round pick at best, which, okay, I'm cool with that. Like if I'm doing like this year for the whole team scouting thing, I've got 23 and then I sit around and do nothing until 120. And if Luke Misa is the guy I get at 120,
you're laughing.
I'm
Because if you
laughing.
get him as your second round, if you got him as your second draft pick and
Yeah.
you were picking like 20 and 34, you're still super happy, right?
I'd be happy with that. Like, but
at 120?
in defense of not us, like thinking why he's not ranked super high, I do think I've definitely noticed that as the year has gone on, he hasn't been driving play to the net nearly as often. Like it's very, to me, he gives me a lot of vibes as Brad Lambert did, where it's like, I see what you're doing. Like you are fast, you're skilled, like Brad Lambert, high pass volumes, high pass completion, really, really good passer. Again, his offensive threat metric for me is almost 30, which if it's almost 30, like 20 is generally like good. Right? Beckett Seneca is a 25, I think. This guy's almost 30. Teddy Stiga is like a 35. Ivan Demidov is like a 40 something. Crazy. But
Jesus,
regardless.
But
and all that is just slot pass attempts and dangerous shot attempts.
Yeah.
So that's really all it is. And Misa was higher. Like Misa was up near 40 for like the first half of the year. And then in the last couple of games I've done, and I've noticed just watching tape of him, he just seems to be put off the gas pedal a little more. And if he doesn't have his foot on the gas pedal, he's far less effective.
Sure.
And he also, there just isn't a whole lot of dynamic play to him. Now, granted, totally leaving him off a list of 120 something players, I think is really extreme. I think that's really extreme. He doesn't look very big. That's another thing too, is when you watch him on the ice, you're like, he looks like a small guy and like looks scrawny. I personally don't really care about that, but I could see how NHL scouts would look at him and go, why would you draft this guy? Because he's going to be too small for the NHL anyway. But to me, it's like, in terms of the analytics, especially offensively for me, he's great. Pretty much everything across the board is really impressive.
Yeah.
Really efficient transition player through passes and carries. He's fast as F boy in a hockey player. He's fast. He's aggressive. I would love to see what happens with him. Like if I were an NHL team and it was 120 something overall and he's there, I'd love to draft him and be like, you know, we know you scored 85 points this year or something, like, and it's not all about points, but it's like, look, we're excited about you, but let's get to work, right? Like I want to put a supportive environment around him, not one where it's like, prove to us that you can play in the NHL, right? It's
it's
like,
agree.
We think you can do it. Yeah, it's like, we think you can do it, but we're going to need to do the work to get there. And if he does do it, I think he could be a really good player. Like his forechecking alone.
Yeah, this is what I mean.
Excellent.
Like he is resilient and he reads the forecheck really well. He escapes body pins very well for a player of his stature. Yeah. And when he's escaping these pins, if he does come out with the puck, he's a bullet.
Yeah.
He flies out. Some of the plays I've seen him make along the boards and the way he will come out with the loose puck, a dart towards the middle of the ice. It's like, how many players move like him?
So
very few.
Here's a fun fact. Granted, these two players played one at a higher level, but Macklin Celebrini and Luke Misa, interestingly enough. So I track a metric called offensive zone turnovers, which is basically the player gets in the way of a pass or something, forechecks well enough, it causes a turnover. The guys who stand out the most of big sample players I have, Teddy Stiga, Berkeley Catton, Zane Parekh, Konsta Helenius, Oli Josephson, Adam Jecko, interestingly enough. But then a few names further down the list, you get to Macklin Celebrini and Luke Misa next door to each other. And people talk all the time about Macklin Celebrini's anticipation skill, his abilities in the offensive zone to like read breakouts and sort of snuff them out before they even happen. He's just like that. To me, Luke Misa is right there with him. Like I did a game of Misa today to close out the data set for the year and to put a video together on him. He read so many opposing defensemen, what they were going to do. He read them so well and put himself in such a good position to turn that puck over, and did so quite a few times. But again, that's another thing that has kind of gone away a little bit as the year has gone on. Like at the beginning of the year, he was a machine, like across the board. So to me, I don't know what that's all about. But I'm not super concerned.
I'm of the belief almost always across the board where if a player has a strong first half of the season for doing whatever they do, and then it fades away in the second half, unless you were skeptical the whole time, you're like, I don't know if this is going to last or something like that. Usually there's a reason why, and it's something like you don't have to be scared of it. Like Brad Lambert is the most extreme version of this. His second half of his season was really disappointing and kind of bad back in 2022. Two of my favorites this year. Misa, I see where you're coming from. I don't track it, so maybe I didn't notice it as much, and I was paying attention to some of those like wicked cuts off the wall into the middle and stuff like that. So I still haven't really, but like my guy Artemonov, I know his second half was not what his first half was. I don't sit there and look at second half Artemonov and go, yeah, that's the guy I'm taking in the top 10. But I saw the first half, and I went back and I checked the first half again, and I was like, no, this is disgusting. Yeah. And he's like the best guy on the ice, like whatever. And yeah, these guys don't just lose it for no reason. Something has happened and we don't know what it is. It's just, are you concerned that you can't see it being replicated in their game going forward? If not, kind of push it to the side a little bit.
Yeah, I think also it's interesting too, because I think in my world, in our world, you draft a Luke Misa and he could play on my third line. Like if I get in his ear and I'm like, you are a forechecking nightmare. If you can add a bit of weight and like be a bit more of a physical presence out there, like physically rather than just with your speed, then you might not score a ton. Sure, I'm not saying that this is likely, but it's like I could see him fitting in on a third line and just being a really good,
like a really good player, man. Like,
and I feel like look at the guys in the playoffs again, right? Like the forechecks in the playoffs are fast. Like you need speed in the NHL these days in the playoffs, right? And I feel like he's a good example of like you could dismiss him at your own peril. And I get the feeling that, yeah, you might think of him as like, well, if he's not on my top 6, then what's he doing? But to me, it's like, no, like even if the scoring doesn't really translate super well, he's still very skilled, very fast, and very aggressive all the time. And he'll probably, if at best, like I feel like there's a good floor to him if you don't discourage him and doubt him and go, okay, but like we think you could be up here.
Yeah.
But just keep doing what you're doing and like you're still a good player.
Why is it that small players are automatically dismissed as players who can be mauled in the playoffs when physics dictate that a lower center of gravity on a strong player can
not everyone's a physicist, right? Like
I don't mean it like to sound like that, but it's like we see there are small players in the league who thrive in roles like that.
Yeah.
I watched Brendan Gallagher for years.
Yeah.
Someone gonna try and tell me that guy wasn't built for the playoffs?
Yeah.
Come on.
And you know what? Guys like a Luke Misa, who I remember Braden Point in the draft, like he had 90 points in his draft year and went all the way to the 3rd round. And people now are like, where did this guy come from? Like blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, it's not like he was a bad player. Sure, there were like question marks about him, but it's like you could still look at him and go,
that's a really good hockey
you
player.
support him and give him time, and you could see something coming out there. And so for me, I'm surprised at just how much people are sort of setting him aside based on what I've seen of him. Like, say what you will, but there's a lot to like with him. Speaking of which, Teddy Stiga, it was the next highest. Not nearly as high, I will say, but about half the difference was Teddy Stiga, the next highest.
What's his average public rank? Do you have these numbers in front of you?
I can pull them up in 1 second. So
and also
overall,
average private rank.
So overall, like taking everyone as a whole, 34. Weighing it to weigh the insiders, 41. Granted, some of these are a little out of date. You know, people will post work between now and the draft, of course, so this is subject to change, but I still buy it. The Teddy Stiga is a guy that I have Teddy Stiga now in like
I have Teddy Stiga 12th.
Yeah, I've got him, I think, at 10 now.
Holy.
Like, I love him.
There are 6 players or so this year where every game I watched, I went, you were that dude.
Yeah.
No exception.
Yeah.
Not a single defenseman are on this list. Most of the forwards are guys who I have late. Like, honestly, Jet Luchenko is one of them. I've never had a bad Jet Luchenko viewing.
Yeah.
But, like, in terms of the high-end players, Teddy Stiga and Berkeley Catton are, like, the only two where I have really pretty much never seen a bad game. Like, sure, maybe one's for their own standards, but they're still one of the just taking over games still.
Yeah.
Like, Stiga is a menace.
Dude,
I have no idea where the love has been for him all year. I have no idea why even at the U18s he didn't blow up the way he probably should have. Like, I feel like this is a guy who should be a top 15 like lock.
I watched every one of the States' games, and I can't recall exactly, but it felt like most of the tournament he was playing with James Haggins, and James Haggins was amazing. He was great, but he and Teddy Stiga together worked off each other so well. Like, I felt like Stiga brought just as much to the game at that tournament as Hagens did.
I think the best line the NTDP has rolled all year was the Zemer Hagens Stiga line.
Dude, yeah, Brody Zemer. Someone asked about him in the chat. We'll get to him later, but like,
that's the best line that I've seen that team roll out. And the only exception is if Bednarik is on that line, as like Stiga and Bednarik play really, really well. But I find Bednarik kind of gelled more with Eiserman through long stretches of the season.
Well, I think those two guys played together at the U18s.
Yeah.
And played pretty well.
They do. But man, like the Stiga, Zemer, Hagens line is crazy because all three are so complementary, but Stiga is the one who is just like on top of the other team. Whenever they have the puck, he's pounding them. And the second he creates a moment of chaos, he's looking, if he can just barely touch a puck with his stick, he will still try and toe drag it behind his back through his leg and pass it forward. It's like, what?
And it's
who does this?
And it's not even the skill level that I'm really banking on with him. It's great.
It's the skating,
but it's the skating and the intensity and the compete level. Like, this guy is not a coward.
No, like, he's fearless
at all. It's crazy. Like, he is a fearless hockey player. Again, he is one of the leaders, if not the leader, in generating turnovers in the offensive zone because he's just everywhere.
He is a menace.
And you know, I have him. It's the same thing as what was happening with like a Gavin Brindley last year, where it's like I loved him every single game I saw him. I'm like, this guy rocks, and I would watch other players, and I'm like, I kind of think I like Brindley more than this guy. Yeah. And it's like, I'm looking at guy after guy after guy, and I'm like, I find Teddy Stiga more interesting than this player or this player. Or
I'll say this, I have him at 12, but when I look at the list, I'm like, man, I like you more than everybody ahead of you.
I think he might even be higher for me. Like,
legitimately, it goes Celebrini. It goes, actually, no. No, it doesn't. Okay, plot twist. Whoops. Anyways, we'll skip that 1-2 thing. Catton, Lindstrom, and then at 5 I have Zeev Buium. But between 5 and 12, where I have Stiga, I don't like anyone more than Stiga. And I find this is the what am I keeping him down argument has started, which is what happened with Gavin Brindley.
Yeah.
It's just why Brindley, I grew the confidence.
Stankoven was another one. Why do I have this guy lower?
I can't.
In retrospect, I'm like, I wish I didn't.
It's like, what is the reasoning? Like, I love a lot of these guys I have ahead of them. I think they're very, very good players. But like, I have Michael Brandsegg-Nugard.
There it is, yeah.
I have him ranked ahead of Teddy Stiga, and I think MBN is a fantastic player. That would be a tough discussion. See what he is without question. You want to talk about playoff players? Like that guy's gonna be one.
Yep.
But Stiga has that spirit you need in the playoffs, and he is a big game player. Yeah, which is like a stupid little moniker, but in this case, it really is true. Like, he does not shy away from any moment.
Nope,
he is him. I feel like it's just the easiest way to say. Like, Teddy Stiga wakes up on game day and goes, "I am him," and then walks out and just demolishes guys.
I just looked at my list. He's at 7.
Holy
well, because I'm like, between him, like right now, as
I
of
respect
today,
that so much.
As of today, my list is Celebrini, Demidov, Catton, Lindstrom, Juracek, Buium, Stiga, Eiserman, Michael Brandsegg-Nugard, and then Alfons Freij. That's my top 10 as of today. Tijik Inla at 11, Zane Perek at 12, Trevor Connolly, then Sam Dickinson. That's my top 2 tiers. Like, I love Teddy Stiga. I think people are down on him because he's small and plays a big person's game. But I think in today's NHL, you can be small and play a big person's game.
You can also
look at Logan Stankoven in the playoffs and tell me he's not a good defensive player.
Yeah.
Like, he is, granted, I think in the defensive zone, there's work to be done with a guy like Stankoven. Like, his plays getting out of the defensive zone are a little rocky here and there, but
he's a rookie.
His ability,
half a season.
His ability to prevent those situations in the first place with his forechecking is outstanding already. Like, I've seen him multiple times take the puck off of Cale Makar and stop a breakout run by Cale Makar. That's not easy.
No.
And so with a guy like Teddy Stiga, I'm going there and I'm going, look, man, like people might be down on you, but your job is to prove them wrong. And he's probably going to be like, yep, I know. And you're going to be like, yeah, like you should, go out there and hunt.
It's what you said about Luke Misa, right? Like you want to put a supporting cast. I want to take Teddy Stiga with a first round pick and put my name beside and be like, we believe this much in you.
Yeah.
I don't know why others didn't, but we do. And we know you want to thrive. And he's just going to sit there with just like victory in his eyes. Like, yeah.
Yeah. He's a guy. He's a good guy. I mean, we can go through the others quick and then we can go to questions, but Alfons Freij is the next one. And then John Mustard and Thomas Galvis.
I understand Mustard and Galvis.
Yes, I do as well. Very
Mustard must piss off a lot of NHL teams when they watch him. And Galvis is just the archetype that they don't typically go towards. So that makes sense as well.
Yep.
I have my own concerns with Galvis, even though I want him to be a thing so badly.
Yep.
But Alfons Freij, I don't get how he is not more how you say liked.
I will
when
say
he does. He's probably been, out of every defenseman I've seen all year, if you count offensive play as everything from carrying the puck up the ice and just like everything to do with your team being better with the puck with puck possession, he's probably the highest impact one across like every category I've seen.
Well,
he's
I think
the best passer. No, sorry, Parek's got the higher passing ceiling, but I feel like Freij's the best quarterback, like the most responsible player.
I think so too. Now, granted, I did my 7th game of.
I know
it was horrendous. He was horrific in the game I saw yesterday, and there are moments where you're like, "What are you doing, buddy? Like, what is happening there?" Like, he just sometimes there are brain farts. Like sometimes you watch him and you're like, "What?" But that's not abnormal for defensemen in general.
Yep.
And I don't want to be the guy who's like excusing my pet project and whatever, but. And I did bump him down because I watched him and I also was like, okay, I think there's a little bit more work to be done here. But I think the way that he plays is the way that you need defensemen like him to play in the NHL. Like the skating ability, the deception, the creativity, the skill level, you need that. He's a high pace of play player. He moves the puck quickly. He moves the puck often. And he does so generally very effectively. It's, but there, and I think it was Tony Ferrari also who was saying, I watched another game of him a couple days ago and he was atrocious there too. So I don't know, maybe it's just some games he's just not feeling it. And when he's not feeling it, he really doesn't feel it. And that's a problem. Yep. And I do think that physical defensive play in his own end is a problem. And that I think also, like, if you're an NHL team and you're looking at an offensive defenseman, but they get pushed around defensively or they're not good when pinned against the boards or something, and you're like, well, that's going to happen in the NHL. And like, why not go for an EJ Emery who's a lot more comfortable in those situations and just turn him into that guy who gets the puck to the center ice line and dumps it in the offensive zone, right? Like maybe that's just what he is and that's fine. And Freij just has a longer way to go. But to me, it's so hard to ignore like how he plays the game. And I thought he was great at the under 18s. Like I'm surprised that Corey Pronman had him in the 80s after the under 18s that he had, because I thought he was the best defenseman on the Swedish team. And I mean, I liked Celine Malenius there, but I didn't think it was particularly close that he was from start to finish like a really good defenseman for that team. I don't know. But I'm more than happy to let him slip. I have him lower than Teddy Stiga now, and I think I agree with that. I think I would rather, like, if it's like for team scouting this year, 23rd overall, if I had to pick between Stiga and Freij, I'd probably go with Stiga. But in my heart of hearts, I probably just want to trade down and get like 30 and 50 and see what happens. But regardless, I don't know. It's a strange one.
Yeah.
At least to that extent. Like, it's pretty sizable, but that's neither here nor there. By the way, Corey Proman also says that his best trait is his shot. I would disagree with that.
Who, Alfons Freij?
Yeah. His hockey sense is below average. Would disagree with that very, very, very heavily. His skating is average. Would disagree with that very heavily. And his puck skill is average, which I would disagree with very heavily.
I think I'd reverse almost all.
Yeah, I'd reverse all of it.
I
Right?
don't like his shot is something
high-end
that
hockey
doesn't
sense,
really
above
move
average
me.
skater, above average skill, above average. I mean, the compete level is average. I'd say that's fine.
That's fair.
enough. Fair enough.
His best trait, without question, is the way he whipped that puck around.
Yeah, the skill and the skating. They're so good.
I mean, as a passer and a distributor,
too, yeah.
coming from the skill and the skating, but like yeah, all of it.
I couldn't believe how bad he was. Just did the other day.
That's disappointing.
Yes, it was. Oh my goodness, it was
It's like when
brutal.
your child brings home a report card and there's D's all over.
Yeah, I was
Like,
sitting-
oh
I
man,
was-
son, I thought you were doing so much better.
Yeah, it's like I was sitting on the train ride home tracking the game, and I was just sitting there like really struggling a little in a way that only I can while alone on a train. Anyway, I guess we can stop it there and then go on to the questions for the last 45 minutes of the show ish. So first, right off the top, Tony Ferrari says that you're beautiful. I don't know.
Thanks, Baldy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
He called me adorable and he called AJ cool. So those are baseline level adjectives and compliments, I would say. Like he could have pulled out the thesaurus maybe a little.
Yeah,
So,
but
if you pull
he's-
out a thesaurus and look up Baldy, what do you think the other phrase is? Oh, jeez. Sorry, Tony.
Hey, well,
Yes.
he's sung our praises a lot in the past anyway.
That is
so
true. That's
Yeah,
true.
It's okay. He's
That's
allowed
true.
to have an off day in terms of giving us
Yeah.
really good descriptors.
I would call him happy. That would be my descriptor of him. Happy. Tony looks happy.
utterly hilarious
Okay.
is without question how I describe Tony.
You added
Yeah.
you added
Laugh
an,
so
you added an
hard.
adverb, so I don't know if we can
Fine,
allow that.
hilarious.
I know
There
how
he goes.
Dylan Griffin would describe him.
Bald.
Dumb.
Yeah, bald.
Yeah, bald.
It'd just be bald.
Thoughts on Yegor Surin? I'm kind of interested in him, and I've heard he's had a good MHL playoff. He looks like he has a good shot in a physical game, but bad decision making. I mean, I would agree with that summary at the end. I've seen Yegor Surin in the first round. I have him, I think, in my second, third round, somewhere in there. Really good skill level, pretty good shot. I just think the hockey sense and like he tries to do a lot on his own, and it does not work often. I don't know. I think first round is a little bit silly, but I think in terms of a Russian player, like there's talent. I can't say there isn't, but whenever I've seen him play, I'm going, okay, like not really moving the needle a whole lot, but he does have a good shot and he does have some good skill and he does try to play physical. I just, I don't know.
It's just that lack of MHL cohesion when you watch them play.
Yeah, a lot of that
right?
too.
It's just like
Yeah.
you can see individual traits that are good, but like, what are you going to become?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't look like an NHL like path.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Question for Sam. Oh boy.
Oh, boy,
Last time you were
that's
on
a
the
bad
stream, the
idea.
possibility of Demidov at 1 made you think for a while. Where do you stand
Spoiler
now?
alert.
What?
Spoiler alert.
Oh no.
Yeah, he is.
He is?
Yeah.
Okay, well there's your answer.
There he is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
that
so there.
happened.
It made you think for a while and you've come to a decision.
You know what's funny is I walked out of that stream. I went home. I thought about it. I didn't think about it for about 2 weeks at all. Like not even a single time. I was too focused on like later issues in the list. And then I
Sure.
just kind of like watched back-to-back games and went, and I had a conversation with a friend who doesn't do scouting at all, but I know he knows hockey really well. And we talked, I showed him Celebrini and I showed him Demidov.
Yeah.
And he did take Celebrini's side.
Yep.
And he was the most unique arguing point that I've had because it was like just a 1 game sample of someone who
Sure.
doesn't even really scout. And then in the middle of this conversation, I went, I don't disagree with anything he's saying. I just don't care. That's when I went, okay, I think Demidov is number 1.
Oh my
Because
God.
I was like, bro, I get where you're coming
I
from,
get it, but no.
like this guy is just destroying everyone who comes in his path. Ivan Demidov. He is looking to humiliate and just tarnish players. I am convinced Demidov is going to do something in the NHL and have a highlight that we've just like never seen before.
He's the
like, it's going to be one of those like, man, that you want your cereal box ad, it will be like on the back of the cereal box will be like the still of this, like
he's your what's it called? He's your North Korean justice system player. Like your children and grandchildren will feel his wrath when he's on the ice with you.
Well,
I am at this point completely convinced that if there is ever a player I am going to stake my reputation on coming into the draft, if I have a grasp on this that I think I do, it is Ivan Demidov. Now, Macklin Celebrini is so good that he makes me uncomfortable to do it.
Yeah.
Because he's so good and so reliable, so consistent. You could do so many things with him. And then like center depth is what wins more than anything. So having a guy like him, knowing he's anchoring either your first line really well, or if not, he's literally the best second line center in the league. Like no matter what, you don't really lose.
Yeah.
But I want to win. And you need that just killer instinct player.
So
to me,
you're gonna have like Bedard and Demidov on a still on a cereal box and come up with like some branding for it.
Sure,
I don't even need to
we
come up
could
with
do this,
branding.
but you know,
just put them
Chicago's gonna draft Levshinov, so it doesn't even matter.
Oh, come on!
No, I
come
can't.
on.
Man, I don't want to live in the world where I am worried about that happening. I just refuse. If it happens, it happens, but I'm not putting myself in the universe.
I'm just absolutely livid, that I have to sit there and go, wow, I can't believe just because of something I need to see so badly that I want a good thing to happen for an organization that I am not a fan of in any capacity. Like if they got them, but then some crazy legal thing happened and like a new team showed up, I was like, yeah, let's go. Let's root for that.
I mean, yeah, I had Demidov at 1 for a time, but then I kind of just went, yeah, I don't think so. I just like, I would like to have both.
I'd like to have both.
Not just the one. I'd like both. I don't think you're going to lose with either, but it's like, but Celebrini, man, like I feel like that guy, just the better he gets, it's so dumb that I'm about to say this, but the better he gets, the better he's going to get. Like his brain, the way he sees the game and like the way he plays and the way he times things and everything is so good. It's just like, get more skilled, get a better shot, like find a better ability to get to scoring areas more often than you do. Like all the things you do good, if he gets better at them, he'll be awesome. Demidov is like an elite offensive dude. Like maybe not as a shooter, but he elevates everyone else. Like you put him on a line with Connor Bedard could score 60 goals. Like, and if Connor Bedard, if he makes himself a target and teams counter for that and double team Bedard or whatever in defensive coverages,
then there's literally no player playing on a first line who's as dangerous with that much space, basically.
Yeah, or just
Demidov in the whole league.
Yeah, and ship it to Demidov. Like he can score, you know. Like
Demidov is a really good, I don't underrate Demidov's shot at all. I actually rate it very highly. Maybe not in terms of like pure speed, mechanics, and stuff like this, but his ability to just whip a shot out of his handles from these weird body positions. It's a deceptive shot. And like everyone's going to be focused on everything else that he does. Yes, he's going to score goals like this. And Demidov is someone who I think is going to really wow people with off puck play when he's in the NHL, because he just spent a year in the MHL. What's off puck play there? It doesn't exist. And even if it did, he's still reading that game way beyond what his line mates were seeing. No disrespect to them. It's just who he is. Like, I don't think Demidov is just this get the puck and watch him go sicko mode type of player. He is. He absolutely was this entire season. But like, I think people will be surprised at like the bit more impact that he's going to bring with him when he comes over.
I agree. so the next question was about who the Blackhawks should draft at 2. I mean, to me, it's so clearly Demidov.
Artyom Levshinov.
No, like, look, if it's Levshinov, whatever, right? Like, okay.
Why? Seriously, why? Look at what you can have. Look at
I know.
Look at that.
Yeah,
man.
no, this is a slam dunk.
It's gonna be one of the stupidest duos potentially in it. Like one of the dumbest duos in NHL history.
Yeah, you think the team that just won with Taves and Kane 3 times would know to like maybe do it again, but these two are both better than their well, I'm not gonna sit there and put Demidov better than Kane, and like I think it's pretty fair to say Bedard will be better than Taves, but like in general, it's like, wow.
It's going to be interesting.
It's crazy that this might not happen.
And then they have Oliver Moore as well, who we're a big fan of.
Who's that guy?
The guy they took, 19th overall
17th?
Last year? No, I think it was 19th. I'm pretty sure it was 19th because
19th.
I was picking with Seattle's picks, and I was at 20, and I was very mad.
Yeah, that would have been frustrating.
I remember screaming at the television, like, no!
I could feel it in the air when Chicago took him. When I was at the arena, I was just like, oh. And
you called it months out, too. Will had it in a mock. Yeah, you had it like, I just get the feeling that Oliver Moore is going to be there at 19, and the Hawks are going to take him, and you put that in a mock draft.
Man.
Oh, I don't remember that.
The 2023 draft was so fun to scout.
On that note, somewhat, aside from a guy like Celebrini, Stankoven, or Cutter Gauthier, etc., who's one of your wild card choices for a rookie to crack the NHL next year who people might not expect? That's a really good question. You know what? I'll throw one out. There. Quentin Musty. Big, fast, skilled. San Jose sucks. You got Will Smith.
What an argument!
Yeah,
I just clapped the cord.
Yeah, big, fast, skilled. Had a great year with Sudbury.
Yeah, man, he went off.
He's a physical guy.
I will never. Just a side note, I'll never forget watching my very first set of Musty games. This guy is so overrated.
It turns out he had mono or something at the beginning.
I'm not even talking about. I was the Holinka camp. I told you the story. He was out there on like and I was just like, bro, this dude does not care about.
I watched some of that. He was not good. Yeah.
I mean, the Holinka camps and that tournament, he was underwhelming. Like, just so much underwhelmingness coming from him. But yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I just forgot every prospect drafted in the NHL all of a sudden.
Well, here, how about I run down 2023 quickly? So Bedard's already there. Fantilli's already there. Mitchkov's going to probably make it. If he comes over. Carlson, Moore is not signed. Smith will probably be there.
Oh, Gavin Brindley,
yeah.
I genuinely think that there's an outside chance that guy just plays too hard and too good to not wow an NHL team. Now, I don't know if I think he should, but if it happened, there's not a very talent-rich team.
Right.
I want to say, because when I heard the question, my gut instinct told me Noah Östlund. I don't know. I mean, I think he would do a bit better than people think, but I don't know if it's best for him. I think he needs a full year on AHL ice, but like he was playing a grown man's game in the SHL. He's come a very long way in pretty much every concern people had from him back in 2022.
Yeah. Another name I just saw that maybe would be one is Liam Bichsel for Dallas. Like Dallas might need some bodies, and I feel like he had a good year in the AHL.
What's Pittsburgh's defense score looking like?
Owen Pickering?
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have much.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not again, it's just one of those. I'm not saying he's ready for it, but like
to me, I want it to be Musty. So I'm going to stick with Musty as my answer.
That's just wait.
Big, skilled San Jose sucks. Yeah.
Daniil Boo.
Is he signed? He's not signed, is he?
Is he not signed? I'm not even thinking about I'm just thinking
Daniel Boot signed till the end of
was who I was gonna say, but then I was like, nah, Boo's more fun.
Yeah, you're probably getting Boot after this season at the earliest. Okay. Favorite names of the draft? I mean, Zeev Bouillam's already a really good one right off the top.
I love I've said it all year long. Leo Celine Wallenius rolls off the tongue.
Yep. There are some good Norwegian names for next year too.
Yeah, there are.
Oh yeah. Finkenhagen is one. Yeah, there's some Finkenhagen.
So sick.
Yeah, I mean Jet Lachenko is pretty good too.
That's a good one.
Who else?
There's some Merrick Vanaker is just a satisfying name.
Merrick Vanaker is a satisfying one.
John Mustard.
Yeah, John Mustard is a classic. I swear to God, he has to wear 57 on his jersey in the NHL.
Yeah.
Like
Dominic Badinka is just there's something so satisfying.
Sounds like a fantasy novel character. Like a Lord of the Rings character. There's Badinka. Badinka the dwarf or something. I don't know. He's probably on a magic card in that box in there somewhere. Badinka the night elf or something. Whee! Do you think Max Swanson gets drafted now after his playoff performance? I'd be surprised, but maybe. I don't think so.
I don't think the factors that have he didn't change his projection. He just showed people that like the good side of his game is like possible to be out there for longer. So like, he had consistency issues, but they were the thing that made you go, oh boy, he really like with those consistency issues, there's no chance. Now it's the core of the issue, which is he doesn't have the tools to survive playing in the league at that height, even when everything is going well. Like he's not dogging them like Stiga is.
No, he's not. And he gets pushed around a lot.
Stiga's also bigger too. It's like,
I feel like Max Swanson's going to be one of those guys who has like 50 points in the SHL in 7 years. Like he'll go to Europe, he'll get paid a lot of money, or Switzerland or something. Like
he's a good hockey player. Like
he is a good hockey player. Yes, not saying he's bad.
He's got a good spot on on the puck preps list because that's for NCAA. Like
he'll be a really good college player.
For the NHL, it's like that's a big barrier.
I think I also might be drunk on the sauce of being exposed to a lot of European clubs this past weekend, but he just screams a guy where if I'm in Switzerland or something, I'm calling him after he's done college and being like, maybe you get an AHL deal or an NHL entry level contract, but like this is also an option and it might not be the worst idea. And you probably would be really, really, really sick in a place like Switzerland or Sweden or whatever. And that's no disrespect. Those are not bad places to play hockey.
I can see him in the Year Garden jersey already.
Yeah.
Not being able to read his number
in a Cloten Flyers jersey. What are your biggest red flags when reading a scouting report? When a player is described as being, quote, jack of all trades and master of none, or if his best trait is his shot, my brain hears bust. I agree with both of that. I don't like when I see a guy where it's like, if I don't read something and can't feel your excitement about a certain area of a player, I'm going, yeah, like, because again, a lot of guys who are role players in the NHL were not role players in junior. They were really good junior players, and then they learned how to settle into a role player's role in the NHL.
That maximized on all of their strengths.
Generally.
Yeah.
Not always, but generally.
Most cases.
And especially with defensemen, when I hear jack of all trades, master of none, that's when I'm like, ugh, like, because in the NHL, like, there aren't many guys like that. You like generally when you look at a defenseman, you're like, oh, I see what you're really good at. I don't know. That always has been like the Brandon Gormley effect. I always call it. Like I just remember Brandon Gormley, top 15 defenseman. Everyone's like, he's not great at anything, but he's good at a lot. And it's like, oh, well, okay. So what's his job going to be? It's like, well, we'll see. It's like, oh, okay. And yes, the shot is another thing where I'm like, yeah, like I love a good shot. Players who can shoot are fun.
I need players to be in shooting positions to begin with. And if they can't get
how is
that shot is like, what are you going to do? Fire it from the center line?
Or like how are you going to get it there?
One goal gets scored there every 10 years. You got a chance, buddy.
Yeah. Well, and again, like it's the whole thing of look at the guys in the draft who get drafted that score a bunch of goals and don't have a bunch of assists. A lot of them don't work out because their job in the NHL, like a coach isn't going to give you the job of, you're going to be the guy who scores the goals. That's not going to be just a guy's job, right? Like the guys who do, unless you're like Alex Ovechkin, but even him, like he wasn't just a guy who stood there and shot the puck.
No way.
Right? Like he got his career going because he was a big, physical, intense guy who also could really score. So to me, it's like a lot of those guys, there needs to be more to the equation than just the shooting. And if they don't have it, that can be exemplified in low assist totals, and Bob's your uncle, and they end up in the AHL forever. Thoughts on the goalie class this year? I don't know. Guys I would say are decent. You could swing on. Like there are dudes, mid rounds. You could take goalies and see what happens.
My strategy never changes.
Don't draft them.
Nope. Draft one every single year. When you have, assuming you have 7 picks minimum.
Yep.
Draft one every single year. 5th, 6th, or 7th. Whatever Russian is just there.
Yeah.
And hope it works itself out. Like, I'm not even joking. I've said it before on stream. Every fantasy draft, I just stack up random. I don't watch them. Sometimes I'm picking names I've never heard of until I heard their name picked at the draft.
Don't even watch the games.
And then I go and I look and I go, all right, this one. And I have done surprisingly well.
Yeah.
The extension is all like European goalies in general, but like if I go for Russia first, because there's something in their water over there that is just making them good.
I like the goalies I do like, because I have tried to go out of my way and like learn a lot more about goaltending and try to understand what it is that makes goaltending prospects interesting. Like Emil Vinny is a good one. Evan Gardner I like. Mikhail Yegorov, Carter George. Those guys all to me are like mid-round guys, 2nd through 4th round, maybe something like that. And even then, like in the 2nd round, I probably am not thinking goalie, because there's probably going to be a guy like a Teddy Stiga or an Alfons Freij where I'm like, I'd rather go with this guy.
Unless there's an Askarov or a Volstedt, which there almost never is. I'm not taking a goalie in the first 4 rounds.
I'll take an Ivan Yunin in the 7th round.
I'll take some overager who's 20 years old in the 7th round and just hope it pans out every year. Eventually something will kind of work. And if not, well, then I'm going to be in the same position as the team that took one in the 2nd and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Right.
So just for the record, Ivan Yunin, shout out to David Phillips also for highlighting him to me a few months ago. Beloved Scouching member. Ivan Yunin's U18 stats in Russia just got posted to Elite Prospects. He played 20 games this season for the U18 team. So granted, this is a very low level of hockey, but 20 games, the guys that backed him up, 12 and 13 games, he had a 1.31 goals against average and a 952 save percentage.
So he let goals in.
Right. 16 wins and 2 losses. His 2 backups, the first one, 2.5 goals against average and a 901 save percentage. And that guy, the other guy, 279 and an 885. So he was by a football length the best goalie on the team.
So that's quite impressive. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, granted, it's a very low level of hockey, and this is a team playing in Siberia, and so whatever, but one of the most athletic goalies I've ever seen in my life, and I'd be curious. And he's not small, 6'2", 200 pounds. I would be very curious about him in the 7th round if no one, but I don't know. Maybe he gets drafted. I don't know. Someone's going to look at his Elite Prospects page of an NHL team and be like, 952, that's not bad. Let's take a look at this guy. And then they see how quick he is and everything, and they go, okay, let's just take a swing on him. But anyway, thoughts on Henry Muse. Saw a couple games live. He's produced well, but has fallen greatly since last year. Super smart guy, but I just don't think there's much in the way of
Jack
NHL
of all trades, master.
Yeah.
That's the scouting report.
Smart puck mover, but I don't think there's
just
much. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not huge on him. Someone mentions that the day Will Smith hath signed his entry level contract is now known as Jiggy Day. I'm down for that. Jiggy Day for.
Am I missing something? Oh, yeah. Sorry, that took a second.
Yes, you're there.
I had to start thinking about who that name is.
Right. Who Will Smith is? Yeah. I mean, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is a bit of an ancient memory at this point. Do you think Will Smith sticks with the Sharks all season or ends up in the AHL? I mean, I imagine he'll be with the Sharks because the expectations for them are win a game, basically. Like they're not. I don't know.
Sorry, JD.
Well, yeah. I mean, he would probably agree, right? Like they're they're gonna hopefully be a little better next year, but like you can sort of play them and see how it goes.
I think you've got officially a young forward core now. Eklund, Smith, Celebrini, and that. Like, I think you keep the squad together and let them grow.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna be ass either way.
Yeah,
might as well develop the boys. And if it goes horrendously to the point where you're sitting there going like, these guys need to have like this is bad.
Yeah.
Then you reevaluate.
You go from there. Do you see any similarities between Stian Solberg and Moritz Seider's situation in that they both play underscouted leagues? I lost the question. Underscouted leaguers might lead them to be undervalued. I mean, yes. I mean, I had Solberg ranked high since January, so that's good. That's good for me, so I don't mind. But I do think there's some truth to that. You know, that they both play in places where maybe they don't get a ton of visibility and then people pay attention.
Yeah.
Like, it is pretty crazy how quickly people looked at Solberg at the World Championships and went, oh, he's good now. It's like, well, he's not like Corey Pronman, 12th overall from a guy who he didn't have ranked before. Like, I think that's a little bit of an overcorrection with him, but I could see him being a good defensive player in the NHL, like a legitimately good one. And he's got a pretty good shot. So that's fun too. Between Plant, Ziemer, and Bednarik, who's better? I feel like they could all be solid NHLers.
Well, sorry, the NTP boys?
Plant, Ziemer, and Bednarik.
My guy there is Ziemer, but like Bednarik being the best NHLer wouldn't surprise me.
I think Bednarik's more fun, but the more you watch Brody Ziemer, at least at the under 18s too, I was like, oh, this is not a player that I remember watching during the season, but he's a really smart and
he's so smart,
really good complimentary like playmaker guy. I think he's a guy that doesn't really need to be a super quick player to make his mark.
He's we've talked about it before. He's the tertiary guy on the line.
A really good one.
He knows he is. He's not he knows he can be better and that everyone is better if he just makes both of his teammates better. So if he plays with two guys who are just like Hagens and Stiga, who are capable of being a 1-2 punch, who overwhelm the other team. Ziemer is that detailed guy connecting the dots.
Yeah, I agree.
And we saw the best possible version of this just the year before on the exact same roster with Perreault just being the guy for Smith and Leonard.
Yeah,
outscoring them by being the third guy on a line, which is just like almost unheard of. Ziemer is like baby Perreault. Shout out to Joel Henderson. That is that is actually like he's the one who brought that comparison to life. I never stopped seeing it the day he said it. He's like, he's kind of like the Gabe Perreault in this year's team. And I went, oh my God, he is.
Yeah. How fun will Celebrini, Eklund, and Will Smith be on the Sharks next year?
Can they at least run that line a little bit? That actually would be nuts.
I don't know if I would do that, but
just do it for a little bit. Who cares?
Put Quentin Musty with one of them. Thoughts on Heikki Ruohonen? I actually watched him today. I was impressed by him at the U18s. A good up and down skater. He's big, but I don't think the world of him. You shuddered. What's up?
I have a question. Sorry to jump the chat line. Where do you have Jesse Pulkkinen right now?
Pulkkinen, let me check.
Still the most fascinating turnaround. Shout out to David St. Louis for basically being like, I don't know why you're writing him off when I told him I was writing him off earlier in the year.
61.
David was right.
I have him at 61.
I have him a bit ahead, but
he's a riot, man. He's a riot.
He is just the most absurd player.
I don't know.
I'm finally happy that I got to see the good side.
I think he'll be gone by the time I'm ready to pick him, but man, whoever drafts him, fans of the team, whoever drafts him, they're gonna get a goofy dude.
He's just a time.
Huge, pretty skilled.
He's almost
and he does what he wants.
I'm rooting for him.
Me too, honestly. I want a guy like him
does not reflect how much I have grown to.
No.
I'll never forget. I don't even remember how many viewings it was. It wasn't a crazy amount, but it was a fair chunk. And I remember watching him every single one. I'm like, this guy is atrocious. What are we doing here? What is this discussion? And then there was that one you and I watched where I was like,
oh,
what is happening? For most ridiculous. I think that might be the most ridiculous game I've seen all year because it was like highlight, low light, highlight, low light, low light, low light, highlight, low light.
No defenseman out there will skate the puck directly in front of his own net at 5 miles an hour and beat someone out in the like just outside his own crease, like Jesse Pulkkinen will. Like
Pulkkinen makes goalies shiver.
Oh my god, yeah. Some of the stuff is just
not the opposition,
it's
his
awesome.
own team. I like to think how many times he and a goalie have argued in like a locker room because the goalie is like, "What are you doing?"
I love him. I think it's so much fun. I don't know if I would draft him, but man, I want him to be a thing. I don't know. I still don't know how I feel about it, especially like if he were like a 2006.
Yeah, if he's this is what I always have to just remember because as an 18-year-old, if he's 18,
yep,
then I'm sitting there going like, you know what?
Yeah,
late first. Because in terms of what I literally see on the ice and the names I have in that territory, I'm like, he's not, it's not outlandish. Like it's stupid, but it's crazy fun. But as soon as I remember that he's in a 4, I go, yeah, okay.
I don't know.
No chance of first.
I think he'll be an interesting player to watch.
Yeah.
But if he's like a guy that's the second guy off the board for you, might be a little bit too much of a risk.
It would be a lot more enticing because like at 18 you get to picture what 2 years of growth would be.
Right. Yeah.
20-year-old Jesse Pulkkinen right now would not be, if I drafted him in the late first as an 18-year-old and I saw what he was at 20, I would be very concerned.
Yeah. We got a question from Bijan. What's your take on Adam Kleber?
Love him.
Long-term project, but I like him.
Love him.
Big. I think he's pretty lanky too. Like, let's see. I don't know what his weight is listed at, but yeah, he's a good player.
My introduction to Kleber was awesome. Watching him at the Holinka camp last year.
6'5", 210, by the way.
Dogging every single player who came at him. Just a bunch of high school kids and some USH, and then there was just big man Kleber back there mauling 2 different forwards in the board, coming out with the puck on one stick and dragging it out by guys. Like he's got some. Kleber can play with the puck.
Yeah, he's got some really interesting moments. Yeah, I like Kleber a lot. He is
definite fan.
He is 50. I mean, he's 59th on my list, but I could easily take him higher than that.
I could have him.
Just bet on him long term.
I just toyed with my whole like 35 to like 50-ish range before I left to come here because I can't stop tinkering. And I think Kleber ended up coming out at like 40 or 41.
Yeah. You give him some time in college, 3 years ish, and see what happens. But I dig him. And I think he could be a really interesting player. Yeah. Will Teddy Stiga go in the first round? Probably not, but I hope so. Has the Memorial Cup changed any rankings at all, particularly with Dickinson or Parekh? For me, no. Pretty much everyone is what I expected, I would say. Although I haven't paid much attention to Dickinson, honestly. I did watch the Knights game the other night, but I didn't really.
He's doing the good stuff Sam Dickinson does.
Yeah. What does team scouting look like in 2024? Okay, we'll do this quick. Yeah, bad. It can be terrible. So the top rated player for my short list at 23 is Adam Jiricek. And if Jiricek isn't there, it's Teddy Stiga. If he's gone somehow, it's Freij.
Well, I think they mean a lineup. Like, what are your lines?
Oh, look like as a lineup.
Yeah.
Fast as hell. Like, if you go all the way back to 2016, assuming I make 0 trades, I definitely need a center. But my top line is Kirill Kaprizov, Austin Matthews, and Mitch Marner. Then you've got Gavin Brindley in there with Nick Robertson, Daniil Gushchin. I would have treated Jonathan Dahlin better. Who else is on that team? I mean, my defense is gross. Lane Hudson, Rasmus Anderson, Timothy Liljegren, Adam Fox, Kalen Addison. Victor Mancini's looked pretty good in the AHL playoffs this year. That's pretty neat. But they're fast, kind of small, but rambunctious and a pain in the butt. That's what I would try to get them to do. That would be my vote. How projectable is Zane Parek's offensive abilities? His numbers are amazing. I mean, I think he'll be, again, like, he's John Klingberg. I keep saying it, but I can't get it out of my head. Like, he's a skilled pass first guy with a great shot.
His vision is insane.
He's got really creative vision. I could see him quarterbacking a power play and maybe being like a second pair offensive guy that you want more out of sometimes, but that's okay. I don't know if he's going to score like a point a game in the NHL, but maybe in a career year he gets up there with a really ripping power play. But I don't know. I don't know.
My thing with Parekh that's always bugged me, and I'm not even speaking like we're talking offensive play.
Yeah.
I've always wanted more from him in transition. I don't mean this like I think he's particularly bad or that there's nothing you can work with. There's a lot. But again, even his transition is so pass heavy. It's like,
yeah, for
him to put up the points that I think people expect, you need to have the footwork of the Hughes, the Heiskanen, Makars, like for that type of offensive defenseman to truly thrive in the NHL. And he's not that type of skater. And you see that more than anything in his transition game. Do you think he is deceptively elusive with his footwork? Like I'm not convinced that he won't be able to find separation and space in the NHL as a puck carrier, but like that's the part of the game that's always concerned me, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, let's go through these quick. Sam O'Reilly thoughts. I mean, I like him, but maybe like as a third line guy in the NHL, skilled.
He'll be great on the Leafs.
Yeah, he'll be a Toronto Maple Leaf first round pick, and everyone's gonna go, and then he's gonna score 90 points this next year, is like Matt and I's 2.0. Max Swanson thoughts we've kind of gone over. Ooh, your favorite NHL jerseys. I mean, my favorites are the 90s Ducks eggplant ones. That takes the cake for me easily.
Yeah, they're pretty classic.
Hate me, but I love the Drew House Leafs. I picked up one.
The black one? Yeah. Those are nice.
I am big fan of the Lakers Kings jerseys. The purple and gold.
Those are cool. I don't know. The 90s Kings jerseys with the gold, the silver on them. Ooh,
those are sick too.
Those are neat. With the gray and the whatever numbers.
Also,
so nice.
I'm homer as hell, but Montreal's.
I mean, yeah, Montreal's a classic.
Montreal's home jersey is just like the nicest.
They're
like
great. Oh. Yeah. Such a nice. Yeah. Yeah. I fell in love with Montreal this weekend, by the way. Yeah. I love it. I loved it.
It's amazing.
Oh, it's so great. Thoughts on Andrew Basha? There's a TikTok about him, so go watch the TikTok.
/ scouting report that we have on YouTube.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's on YouTube too, right? Yeah.
Watch it on both.
Who would do better, Celebrini in the MHL or Demidov in the NCAA? Probably Celebrini in the MHL.
Celebrini in the MHL would score 1 million points simply because
score a gajillion points.
It's funny though, because Celebrini's like the things we love about him wouldn't really work over there because the cohesiveness that Celebrini thrives in, like out reading, doesn't exist. So he would just get the puck and go, all right, fine, idiots, and just like kind of dangle through everybody. But like he won't attack people head on like Demidov was. Yeah. I think Demidov in the NCAA would torch the entire league. Like I think that's when you finally get to see the structured Demidov, and it's like, oh my god. I think they would probably both. I think Demidov is like round equal to what Celebrini was, maybe a little bit behind on the input because he'd have a slower start to the season, but like year end, he'd impress you more. Celebrini would probably break the all-time MHL points record if he brought his current game over there. Yeah. Thoughts on Sam Dickinson? I still am wishy-washy about him. But I believe. Yeah. Well, yeah. I believe heavily. He's a solid player. Like you watch the playoffs and like defenders who are just simple, good at defending. Granted, he makes mind misread sometimes, but like just like use their reach really well, can get the puck, can make first passes, skate well, just consistently play at the pace of that game, do really well. I think Sam Dickinson can do that on a second pairing very, very well. Yeah, fair enough. Fine by me. EJ Emery or Stein Solberg? For me, it's Solberg. Solberg. Yep. To me, Solberg kills souls. I love him so much. He's such a BASTARD. What do you think of Colton Roberts? Not a fan. I'm personally not a Colton Roberts fan. I don't know about you, but
Yeah, not really a fan. Thoughts on what Don Waddell might do in Columbus draft-wise and prospect-wise? Well, I mean, considering he built the Carolina group and they were probably among the more progressive and modern, skill-first group, and that's kind of already what Columbus kind of does, I would say more of the same from Columbus. Like more of that, like he kind of helped build the Carolina thing, and every time I've heard him open his mouth about the draft, it seems to be good stuff coming out of it. So, oh God, what do you see?
Nothing.
Okay. Nothing. Great. Oh boy. Is Jet Greaves closer to a starting NHL goalie, NHL backup, or should he stay in the AHL? I don't know. Hasn't Jet Greaves been like perfectly okay in the NHL with like a few games where he stopped like 50 shots? I don't know. Are you going to stream the draft? That is a tough question because I will be there at least for day one, but we're trying to figure out what to do for the event because it would be silly not to.
I think we're gonna do day 2.
Yeah.
Because I'd love to do a stream with you there, and we could have you doing stuff, but I don't know what the restrictions are gonna be like.
Yeah, I don't think that's legal.
You have to be applying like now. I remember
I did.
when we went through this with Montreal.
I did apply. I just haven't heard back. So we'll see. I don't know. One way or the other, though, there will be definitely a lot of content about the draft around draft time. Yep. There will also be recaps afterwards for each team. So
and at worst, maybe Sam and I do a stream where Sam's the main guy.
Yeah, why not? How bad could it be, right?
Scouching.
Best one tool guys.
Me with a wrench.
Silayev and his skating, maybe, or the Solberg and his punishing physical play, something like that. I don't know.
Mustard in his sauce.
Mustard in his size, yeah,
sauce.
Or speed. Mustard speed. That's it. How do you think Will Smith will do in the Western Conference? I mean, we kind of went there. Igor Chernyshov thoughts. Was his TikTok and YouTube report put back up? AJ, is it alive now?
No, the YouTube one's there. I haven't put together the Chernyshov TikTok version yet.
Oh, okay.
It'll
probably
be
get
out
blocked
tomorrow or out shortly. But
yeah. It'll get blocked because we're trying to manipulate elections over and over and over again.
Yeah, our TikTok, like anytime we put one out on the Russian players, they would get a community guideline violation. We had to wait like 11 days for the Artemonov one to go up. And we got lucky with the Demidov one. It only was a violation for 6 hours, and then it went up and blew up. So thank God for that.
Yeah, thank God. We're really, I mean, AJ and I just really, really, really are trying to manipulate elections. Honestly, it's just been our life goal. Vladimir Putin, best. What?
Okay. I was about to say who for, and then you said Putin. Vladimir Putin.
Putin's the best, man. He's the coolest. That's a joke, by the way.
Sad that you have to like express this joke.
Okay, well, yeah, the rest we kind of have to bang through. There's one that's definitely a long answer question, so we'll just put a pin in that one. How would you rank this draft's top 10 to 15 in comparison to the last 2 or 3 years?
Weaker, more frustrating.
I would say it's like it could go a variety of ways.
Yeah.
A very big variety of ways. I'd say it's a less of a sure thing, but that's it.
Yeah.
Might be late, but what did you make of the Hawks moving from 20 to 18? I don't know what that was all about.
Yeah,
I don't know what
insane to trade a high value pick to move your other 2 high value picks up 2 spots a month out from the draft. Like, unless you know the exact order of the draft, what are you doing?
Yeah,
what are you doing? Like,
yeah. Chris Johnson said he thinks that Liljegren will be traded. Thoughts? I would not. Again, Toronto needs young defensemen who can play.
I don't see it happening.
I don't see it happening. I really don't.
I'd
be surprised.
I said it in our Discord. I don't trust any insider not named Elliot Friedman. I just don't. I don't care what any of them say, other than maybe Kevin Weeks. But that's it.
Yeah.
Friedman and Weeks, and that's it. And until I see it, I'm not going to believe it.
Yeah. Who would you draft at 7 if you were Ottawa? I can't help but say Berkeley Catton. I think if Caden Lindstrom is there, I'd go Caden Lindstrom probably, but I think Ottawa needs a guy like Catton so bad. Like
Buiam, just to throw out a different name as well.
Yeah, they just have a lot of solid offensive defensemen already, like on the NHL roster who are young. Like,
yeah,
I just feel like, to me, I think Berkeley Catton is like, yeah, you've got Tim Stutzla, but when he's not on the ice, now you have Berkeley Catton. And then you have Josh Norris as well and Shane Pinto. Like, it gives you another just monstrous weapon to have. I mean, maybe you go for a defenseman, but
no, it makes sense to go for a forward. I just don't want them to, because they're Ottawa.
I feel like Lindstrom, though, it feels like more of an Ottawa Senator type player. So maybe him too. Either one of those two, I would be fine with from them. If you were Anaheim at 3, who would you take? Gavin McKenna. I probably would say Lindstrom. I think Caden Lindstrom screams what Pat Verbeek wants the Anaheim Ducks to be. Physical, intense, willing to get his hands dirty, but really skilled. You know, like him and Mason McTavish on the same team.
With Leo Carlson.
Like, to me, Caden Lindstrom just makes sense to me. Watching Catton, I see shades of Marner. Yeah, I could see where you're coming from with that.
Yep.
What will Iginla be if he pans out as you expect? I don't know, like a
really good complementary second line guy.
Or an excellent third line guy.
Yeah, like they're almost interchangeable. Like the third line, the best guy on a third line, or like that guy who moves throughout the top 6 to just kind of like spark lines and get like, I don't know. He'll be just a really good player, but I don't see a star who's like leading a team.
So you're talking a Swiss Army knife type guy.
A bit better than a Swiss Army knife.
That can energize a lineup.
Yeah, but I think he's a bit better than that, because like I think he's kind of like Artemonov. He will be about as good as his line is, but like play him on a good first line with like 2 really good players, he will do very good. Play him on a middling second line with 2 kind of good guys, he's still gonna do good. And you know, just kind of how he is. That's why he's gonna go like 5 to 8 in the draft.
We're fans. His stock is strong with our business. Okay, well, that'll be it for today. That's all the time we have. Thank you for joining us, of course, and Sam, it's lovely to have you back in the basement of despair. It's lovely to have you down here.
I'm despaired already.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All we do is despair, honestly.
With your box of toys, eh? Will?
With my box of toys. Yeah, exactly.
You want to word that any differently?
Nope. Okay. But anyway, let's call it a day. Again, thanks to both of you. This was a lot of fun. Let's run through this. We're brought to you by Fanatics. You can use our affiliate link in the description below, or you can scan the QR code in the window to provide a kickback to the show on anything you buy in the store. Or you could support us through Puck Preps Hockey, where you can go get your NCAA and CHL prospect needs. You can also help us out at Fractal Hockey Consulting for our hand-track targeted player analysis and recruitment packages for the NCAA, Europe, and beyond. And of course, Scouching.ca, where you get innovative data tools, tons and tons of insights into draft prospects, as well as players making their way into the NHL, with tons of fun stuff coming down the stretch before and shortly after the draft. So once again, fellas, thanks again. This was a good time. Yeah. AJ, you've been pretty quiet all show. Do you need to get something off your chest before we call it a day, or what are you thinking?
Are you saying what I think you're telling me to say?
Maybe. I don't know.
Don't
speak your mind.
Go Leafs, go! Good night, everybody.
They're not playing, but that's okay.